The silence in the command room was heavy. Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the large screen showing the planet below. Smoke rose from burning cities. Red lights blinked across the display like drops of blood. "How many are left down there?" she asked. Lieutenant Chen checked his readings. "Maybe 50,000 Cathari soldiers. They're all gathered in the last fortress city." Elena rubbed her tired eyes. The human fleet had traveled for 3 weeks to reach this place. The Galactic Confederation had asked for help. The Cathari people were dying. Their ancient enemy was winning. "Tell me about this enemy again," Elena said. Chen pulled up a file. "They call themselves the Vorthak. They've been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. Every planet they take, they leave empty. No survivors. But why?" Elena asked. "What do they want?" "Nobody knows. They don't talk. They don't make deals. They just fight." Elena looked at the planet again. Green continents were now brown and gray. Beautiful oceans looked dark under the smoke clouds. This world had been alive just 1 year ago. Now it was almost dead. "Commander," called another officer from across the room. "We're getting a signal from the surface." The main screen changed. An alien face appeared. The Cathari looked like tall, thin cats that walked on 2 legs. This one had blue fur and large golden eyes. Fear showed clearly in those eyes. "Human ships," the Cathari spoke in careful English. "I am Defense Leader Keth. We thank you for coming. But you are too late." "We brought 30 ships," Elena said. "Good weapons. Trained soldiers. We can help you fight." Keth's ears drooped. "You don't understand. There is only one of them left. Just one Vorthak warrior. But she has killed everyone else." Elena felt confused. "One soldier? Against your whole army?" "Her name is Thyra the Bloodletter. She killed 40,000 of my people yesterday. Today she will kill the rest of us. Then she will kill you too." Before Elena could answer, alarms started ringing. The ship's sensors had found something. "Commander," Chen shouted. Movement on the surface. Something big. The screen changed to show the battlefield. Elena saw a figure walking across a field of fallen Cathari soldiers. The figure wore red armor that seemed to glow. She carried a sword that looked too big for any normal person to lift. "Is that her?" Elena whispered. "Yes," Keth answered from the screen. "That is Thyra." Elena watched the red figure walk. Even from space, she could see the grace in every step. This wasn't some wild monster. This was a trained warrior. "How fast can she move?" Elena asked. Keth's voice was hollow. "Watch." On the screen, a group of Cathari soldiers ran toward Thyra. They carried energy weapons and moved in perfect formation. These were good soldiers. Brave soldiers. Thyra raised her sword. What happened next made Elena's blood turn cold. The red warrior moved like lightning. Her sword cut through the air so fast it left bright trails. Cathari soldiers fell like cut grass. In 10 seconds, 20 soldiers were dead. In 30 seconds, 50 more fell, but it wasn't random killing. Elena watched carefully. Each cut was exact. Each movement had purpose. Thyra wasn't angry or wild. She was calm, professional. "My God," someone whispered behind Elena. Thyra kept walking toward the fortress city. More Cathari soldiers came to fight her. Hundreds of them. They shot energy beams and threw explosives. Nothing touched her. She moved between the attacks like she could see the future. Her sword sang through the air. Each swing killed multiple enemies, but Elena noticed something strange. The cuts were clean, quick. The Cathari soldiers didn't suffer. They died fast. "She's not torturing them," Elena said quietly. "What?" Chen looked confused. "Look at how she kills. It's fast, clean. She's not making them suffer." Elena watched for another hour. Thyra fought through 3 more groups of soldiers. Each time the same pattern. Perfect fighting skills. Quick, merciful deaths. Finally, Thyra stopped walking. She was still a mile from the fortress city. She looked up at the sky. Right at Elena's ship. The communication system made a sound. Someone was sending a message from the planet. "Answer it," Elena ordered. A new voice came through the speakers. It was female, deep and tired. "Very tired. Human ships," the voice said in perfect English. "I am Thyra of the Vorthak." "I know you are watching." Elena stepped forward. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez. We're here to help the Cathari people." A long pause. Then, "You cannot help them. I must finish my duty here. When I am done, you should leave." "Your duty?" Elena asked. "What duty requires killing an entire planet?" Another pause. "Longer this time. You would not understand, human. Your people are new to the galaxy. You have not seen what I have seen. You have not done what I must do. Elena felt anger rising in her chest. I've seen war. I've seen people die. I know what duty means, but this isn't duty. This is murder. No. The voice was sad now. Murder is killing without reason. I have reasons. Old reasons. Necessary reasons. Elena looked at the screen. Thera still stood in the battlefield, surrounded by the dead. Her red armor caught the sunlight. What reasons? Elena asked. Tell me. I cannot. The burden is mine alone to carry. Elena made a quick decision. Then show me. Let me come down there. Talk to me face to face. Her officers looked shocked. Chen grabbed her arm. Commander, you can't. She just killed an army. Thyra's voice came through the speakers again. Why would you do this? Why risk your life for people you barely know? Elena thought about the question. Why was she willing to go down there? She looked at the screen showing the dead battlefield. All those lives lost. All that pain. Because someone needs to try, Elena said. Someone needs to break this cycle. The communication was quiet for a long time. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. Finally, Thyra spoke. Land near the blue flowers 1 mile north of my position. Come alone. Bring no weapons. Commander, Chen said urgently. This is suicide. Elena shook her head. No. This is the only chance we have to understand. She turned to face her crew. If something happens to me, don't attack. Just leave. Take the other ships and go home. But Commander, that's an order. Elena walked toward the shuttle bay. Behind her, she could hear her officers talking in worried voices. But she didn't stop walking. 20 minutes later, Elena's shuttle broke through the planet's atmosphere. She could see the battlefield below her. Thousands of bodies lay scattered across the ground. In the distance, the fortress city waited behind its walls, and in the middle of it all, a figure in red armor stood perfectly still, waiting. Elena landed her shuttle near a patch of blue flowers. As she stepped outside, the wind carried the smell of smoke and death. But the flowers still bloomed, beautiful and bright against the dark ground. She started walking toward Thera the Bloodletter, the warrior who had killed entire armies, the enemy of worlds. Elena's hands shook slightly, but she kept walking. Behind her, the shuttle's engines grew quiet. Ahead of her, Destiny waited in red armor. The galaxy was about to change forever. Elena just didn't know it yet. Elena walked slowly across the battlefield. Her boots made soft sounds on the grass. All around her lay the bodies of Cathari soldiers. She tried not to look too closely, but she couldn't help noticing something. Each soldier had been killed with one clean cut. No extra wounds, no signs of anger or hate, just quick professional death. The blue flowers grew in patches between the bodies. How strange that something so beautiful could exist in a place of so much death. Elena bent down and touched one of the flowers. It was real. Soft and alive, you noticed them too. Elena spun around. Thera stood 30 feet away. Elena hadn't heard her approach. Up close, Thyra was even more impressive. Her red armor covered her from neck to feet. It wasn't metal. It looked like crystal that had been shaped by master craftsmen. Strange symbols glowed softly along the edges. But it was Thyra's face that surprised Elena most. The warrior had removed her helmet. Elena had expected to see something monstrous. Instead, she saw a woman. Thyra looked human in many ways. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But her skin was pale white, almost silver. Her hair was long and black with streaks of gray. Most striking were her eyes. They were deep blue and very, very old. The flowers, Elena said carefully. You were talking about the flowers. Thyra nodded. They are called memory blooms. They grow on worlds where great sadness has happened. The Kethari planted them here long ago to remember their first war. Elena looked around at the blue patches scattered across the field. There are so many. This world has seen much sadness, Thyra said. She walked to a nearby flower and knelt beside it. Her massive sword remained on her back. I have added to that sadness today. Elena watched the strange warrior touching the flower gently. This wasn't what she had expected. Where was the bloodthirsty monster? Where was the killer who destroyed worlds? How old are you? Elena asked. 3,047 years, Thyra answered without looking up. I was born when your species was still learning to make fire. Elena sat down on the grass near Thera. Not too close, but close enough to talk without shouting. That's a long time to live. Too long, Thyra said quietly. Tell me about your people. Thvorthek. Thyra finally looked at Elena. Those ancient eyes were full of pain. My people are dead. All of them. I am the last. How did they die? In battle. As warriors should. Thyra stood up and walked a few steps away. But they were lucky. They found their end. They found peace. Elena didn't understand. Peace in death? You don't know our history, Thyra said. You don't know what we were before the curse. Elena waited. She could tell Thyra wanted to talk. After 3,000 years alone, maybe she needed to talk. We were guardians once, Thyra began. Protectors of the galaxy. We lived on a beautiful world called Vorthak Prime. We had families, children, art, music, love. Thyra's voice grew distant, like she was seeing something far away. Then the darkness came. Ancient things from the space between stars. Things that eat light and hope and life itself. They were too strong for any one species to fight. Elena listened carefully. This sounded like history the Galactic Confederation had never heard. The old races made a prison, Thyra continued, a cosmic cage to hold the Dark Ones. But the prison needed power to stay closed. Constant power. The kind that only comes from strong emotions. What kind of emotions? Elena asked. Thyra looked at her sword. Fear. Pain. The energy that comes from battle and death. The prison feeds on war. Elena felt a cold understanding creeping into her mind. And your people agreed to provide that war? We volunteered, Thyra said with pride. We made a pact with forces beyond your understanding. We became eternal warriors, our souls bound to endless battle. As long as we fought and conquered, the prison would stay strong. Elena stood up. But that's slavery. You gave up your freedom. We gave up our lives to save the galaxy. Thyra's voice grew hard. Every world has life because we chose duty over happiness. Elena walked closer to Thyra. But you're alone now. Your people are gone. Why do you keep fighting? Thyra was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because if I stop, the Dark Ones will break free. Because 3,000 years ago, I swore an oath that cannot be broken. Because every life in this galaxy depends on me continuing to kill. Elena saw tears in those ancient eyes. You're tired. I am so very tired, human. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I've watched species evolve and go extinct. I have killed millions of people who didn't deserve to die. And I cannot stop, Elena sat back down. There has to be another way. Thyra laughed, but there was no joy in it. I have searched for 3,000 years. The greatest minds in the galaxy have tried to find another path. There is none. The prison requires the energy of conquest. Nothing else works. Have you tried anything besides war? Elena asked. What else is there? Thyra looked confused. The pact was specific. Victory in battle. The defeat of enemies. The taking of worlds. That is what feeds the prison. Elena thought about her own people. Humans were good at war, yes, but they were also good at other things. Building, creating, loving, finding solutions others missed. The pact says you need the energy of strong emotions, right? Elena asked. Yes. But does it specifically say those emotions have to be negative? Thyra stared at her. What do you mean? Elena stood up and brushed dirt off her uniform. I mean, what if there was a way to create just as much emotional energy through hope instead of fear? Through building instead of destroying? Impossible, Thyra said. But Elena heard something new in her voice. A tiny note of interest, is it? Elena asked. Have you ever tried? Thyra was quiet. Elena could see her thinking. After 3,000 years of the same pattern, the idea of something different was almost too big to understand. Even if such a thing were possible, Thyra said slowly, how would you test it? If I am wrong, if I stop fighting and the prison weakens, the Dark Ones escape. Everything dies, Elena smiled. Then we don't test it by stopping your war. We test it by starting something else. Something bigger. Elena pulled out her communication device and contacted her ship. Chen, I need you to contact Confederation Command. Tell them to send every construction ship, every engineer, every artist and builder they can find. Commander, Chen's voice came through the device. What are you planning? Elena looked at Thyra. The ancient warrior stood perfectly still like a statue, but Elena could see hope growing in those blue eyes. Tiny and fragile, but real. We're going to try something new, Elena said. We're going to build something so beautiful, so hopeful, so full of positive emotion that it generates enough power to keep cosmic prisons locked forever. She put the device away and walked closer to Thera. "Will you help us?" Elena asked. "Will you try a different path?" Thyra looked down at the memory blooms growing between the bodies of the dead. She looked at Elena, young and hopeful and alive. She looked up at the stars where ancient evils waited in their cage. For the first time in 3,000 years, Thyra the Bloodletter smiled. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will try." 3 days later, ships filled the sky above the dead planet. Elena had never seen so many different species working together. Human construction vessels flew alongside Cathari medical ships. Tall, thin Andromedans brought their crystal-growing technology. The short, furry Belphanoids carried seeds from 1,000 worlds. Elena stood on a hill overlooking the main construction site. Thousands of beings worked below, clearing rubble and planting new life where battles had destroyed everything. It was the largest peace project in galactic history. Thyra stood beside her, still wearing her red armor. She hadn't taken it off since Elena met her, but she had put her sword away. That was progress. "Tell me more about the prison," Elena said. "I need to understand exactly how it works." Thyra watched a group of human children playing near a newly planted garden. The Cathari survivors had allowed families to come help with the project. Children always made work go faster somehow. "The prison exists between dimensions," Thyra said. "It was built by races that died before your galaxy formed. Very powerful beings. Very wise," Elena nodded. "And these dark ones inside it?" "Imagine hunger given form," Thyra said quietly. "Imagine creatures that eat hope itself. They consume light, joy, love, life. Everything good becomes food for them." A small human girl ran up the hill carrying a blue memory bloom. She stopped in front of Thyra, looking up at the tall warrior with wide, curious eyes. "Are you really 3,000 years old?" the girl asked. Thyra knelt down to be at the girl's level. "Yes, little one." "That's really old," the girl said seriously. "You must know lots of stories." "I do," Thyra said. "But they are mostly sad stories." The girl held out the flower. "Then you should learn some happy stories. My mom says flowers make everything better." Thyra took the flower carefully as if it might break. "Thank you." The girl ran back down the hill to rejoin her friends. Thyra watched her go, still holding the flower. "She's not afraid of you," Elena observed. "Children rarely are," Thyra said. "They see truth more clearly than adults. They know I don't want to hurt them." Elena sat down on the grass. "Tell me about the first time you killed." Thyra was quiet for a long moment. "His name was Corvesh. He was a pirate who raided peaceful colonies. The Confederation asked us to stop him." "Did he deserve to die?" "Yes," Thyra said without hesitation. "He had killed thousands of innocent people. But that's not what haunts me. What does?" Thyra sat down beside Elena, the flower still in her hands. "What haunts me is how easy it became. The first kill was hard. The second was easier. By the 100th, I felt nothing. By the 1,000th, I had forgotten their faces." Elena studied Thyra's profile. "When did you realize you were trapped?" "About 500 years in," Thyra said. "I tried to stop fighting. I went to a peaceful world and tried to live quietly. I helped farmers grow crops. I protected villages from wild animals. I was happy. What happened? The prison sensors showed that emotional energy levels were dropping. The Dark Ones began to wake up. Their whispers reached into the minds of peaceful people, turning them violent. Wars started breaking out across 3 sectors of space." Thyra crushed the flower stem between her fingers. "I realized that my happiness was causing death everywhere else. So I picked up my sword again." Elena watched the construction work below. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building something beautiful from the ashes of war. What if the sensors were wrong? What if there was enough positive energy to balance the negative? "I thought about that too," Thyra said. "So I did research. I studied the prison's power requirements. I learned exactly how much emotional energy it needs." She pointed at the work crews below. "What you see down there is wonderful. All that cooperation and hope and determination. It creates powerful positive energy." Elena felt excited. "Enough to power the prison?" "No," Thyra said sadly. "Not even close. The amount of energy required is massive. It would take the combined joy of 1 billion worlds working together to equal what one major war produces." Elena's heart sank. 1 billion worlds? There weren't even 1 million inhabited worlds in the entire galaxy. "However," Thyra continued, and Elena's hope returned, "I may have found something interesting in my research." Elena turned to face her completely. "What?" The prison was designed by beings who thought very differently from us. They built it to last forever, but they also built in a way to change its power source. Change it how? Thyra stood up and walked to the edge of the hill. The original designers knew that the universe changes over time. They included something called a resonance shift protocol. If enough pure emotional energy of a different type could be generated in a short time, the prison could be reprogrammed to feed on that instead of war. Elena jumped up. How much energy? How short a time? The equivalent of a major galactic war, Thyra said. Generated in less than one standard day. Elena felt confused. But that's impossible. How do you create that much positive energy so quickly? You don't, Thyra said. That's why no one ever tried it. The mathematics are impossible. Elena stared at the construction site below. Thousands of beings working together. But even if she could get millions of people to work on this project, it still wouldn't be enough. Then she had an idea. A wild, desperate idea. What if we didn't try to match the energy output of a war? Elena said slowly. What do you mean? Elena grabbed Thyra's arm, excitement building in her voice. What if we created a different kind of energy entirely? Something the prison was never designed to handle? Explain. Elena pointed at the human children playing below. Humans are different from other species. We don't just feel emotions. We amplify them. We take small feelings and make them huge. Thyra looked confused. I don't understand. When humans work together on something meaningful, we create emotional resonance chains. One person's joy feeds another person's hope, which feeds another person's love, and it builds and builds. Elena started pacing, her mind racing. What if we could create a resonance cascade? Start with a small group of humans generating pure positive emotion, then use technology to amplify and broadcast it to other humans across the galaxy? The energy would multiply exponentially, Thyra said, understanding beginning to show in her eyes. Exactly. Instead of trying to match war's energy with construction projects, we create something war could never match. A galactic wave of synchronized positive emotion. Thyra was quiet for a long time, thinking. Elena could almost see her ancient mind working through the possibilities. It might work, Thyra said finally, but it would require perfect timing, and it would require every human in the galaxy to participate at exactly the same moment. Elena smiled. Then we better start making some calls. She pulled out her communication device and contacted her ship. Chen, patch me through to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Elena, Thyra said quietly. Elena looked at her. If this fails, if the prison weakens even slightly, the Dark Ones will escape. They will consume everything. Every world, every star, every dream anyone has ever had. Elena met those ancient, tired eyes. And if we don't try, you'll keep killing forever, and eventually you'll break under the weight. Either way, everything ends. Thyra nodded slowly. Either we find a new way or we all die. Then let's find a new way, Elena said. Her device crackled to life. Commander Vasquez, this is Admiral Chen on Earth. We're receiving reports of massive construction fleets heading to your position. What's your status? Elena looked at Thyra, then at the work crews below, then at the stars where ancient evils waited in their cage. Admiral, Elena said, I need to speak with every human leader in the galaxy. I have a plan to save everything. But first, I need to tell you about a warrior who's been fighting alone for 3,000 years. The conversation that followed would change the course of galactic history. But that part of the story was still to come. 2 weeks later, the dead planet looked completely different. Where armies had fought and died, gardens now bloomed. Where cities had burned, new settlements rose with clean lines and bright colors. Children played in parks built on old battlefields. Elena stood watching a group of Cathari cubs playing with human children. They were building something together with blocks and laughter. The sound of joy filled the air where screams had echoed just days before. The energy readings are incredible, Chen reported through Elena's earpiece. Every positive emotion meter in the fleet is off the charts. Elena nodded. But her attention was focused on Thyra. The ancient warrior stood alone at the edge of the main construction site, watching everything but participating in nothing. She still wore her red crystal armor. Her sword remained strapped to her back. For 2 weeks, Thyra had watched the transformation of her battlefield. She had seen cooperation replace conquest. She had witnessed hope growing where despair had ruled. But she had not truly joined in. Elena understood why. After 3,000 years of being a weapon, Thyra didn't know how to be anything else. Elena walked over to join her. "The memorial garden looks beautiful," she said. Thyra nodded toward a section where Ketheri families placed flowers near small monuments. Each monument honored soldiers who had died in the battle. "They honor their dead without hatred," Thyra said quietly. "I have never seen such a thing. Don't your people have memorials?" "We did once," Thyra said. "Before the curse. We honored those who died protecting others. But after we became eternal warriors, death became different. My people began to see dying in battle as freedom from the curse." Elena watched a Kethari mother place a blue memory bloom on her son's memorial. The woman wasn't crying. She was smiling, remembering good times. "Do you have memorials for your people?" Elena asked. Thyra was quiet for a long time. "I am their memorial. As long as I live and remember them, they are not truly gone." Elena felt a deep sadness for this woman who carried the weight of an entire civilization on her shoulders. "That's a heavy burden for one person." "It is my burden," Thyra said simply. Elena's earpiece crackled. "Commander, we're receiving confirmation from all human colonies. Operation Resonance is ready to begin on your signal." Elena took a deep breath. After 2 weeks of planning and preparation, they were ready to attempt the impossible. Every human settlement in the galaxy would participate in a synchronized moment of pure positive emotion. The energy would be amplified by special equipment and focused toward the cosmic prison. If it worked, the prison would switch from feeding on war to feeding on hope. Thyra would be free from her curse. If it failed, the Dark Ones would escape and consume everything. "Elena," Thyra said suddenly. Elena looked at her. "Why are you doing this? Why risk everything for someone you barely know?" Elena had asked herself the same question many times over the past 2 weeks. "Because you deserve a chance to be more than a weapon. Because 3,000 years of sacrifice should be enough. Because everyone deserves to choose their own path." Thyra looked down at her armored hands. "I don't know how to be anything else. I have been a warrior for so long I've forgotten who I was before." Elena stepped closer. "Then we'll figure it out together." "Commander?" Chen's voice came through the earpiece again. "All stations report ready. Human colonies across 17 sectors are standing by." Elena looked around the construction site one more time. Thousands of beings worked together in harmony. The air hummed with positive energy. It was beautiful. But would it be enough? "Begin the countdown," Elena ordered. To -60 seconds. Elena watched Thyra carefully. The ancient warrior stood perfectly still, but Elena could see tension in her posture. 3,000 years of duty were about to end one way or another. 50 seconds, Chen reported. Across the galaxy, human families gathered together. On Earth, in New Tokyo, on Mars colonies, on distant frontier worlds, people held hands and thought about hope. About love, about the future they wanted to build. 40 seconds. Thyra closed her eyes. "If this works," she said quietly, "I don't know what I'll do with my freedom." 30 seconds. Elena watched construction crews stop their work to join the moment. Aliens and humans stood together, focusing on thoughts of peace and cooperation. 20 seconds. A small Ketheri child ran up to Thyra, carrying another memory bloom. She handed it to the warrior and smiled before running back to her mother. 10 seconds. Thyra opened her eyes and looked at the flower in her hands. Then she looked at Elena. Those ancient blue eyes showed fear and hope in equal measure. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. Across the galaxy, 12 billion humans focused their thoughts on a single moment of pure joy. Parents thought about their children's laughter. Lovers thought about tender moments together. Artists thought about the beauty they wanted to create. The energy readings went wild. Elena's instruments showed power levels climbing beyond anything they had ever recorded. The positive emotional resonance built and built, amplified by human technology and multiplied by human hearts. "It's working," Chen shouted through the earpiece. "Energy levels are exceeding all projections." Elena watched Thyra carefully. The warrior was standing perfectly still, but something was happening. Her red crystal armor began to glow brighter. The ancient symbols along the edges pulsed with new light. Then Elena heard something that made her heart stop. Crying. Thyra, the bloodletter, the warrior who had conquered worlds, the woman who had carried 3,000 years of duty without complaint, was crying. Tears ran down her pale cheeks as the curse that had bound her began to break. The cosmic prison was accepting the new power source. War was no longer needed, but there was something else, something Elena hadn't expected. As the curse broke, Thyra began to change. The crystal armor started to crack and fall away in pieces. Underneath, Elena saw regular clothes. Simple, practical, peaceful clothes. Thyra's sword, the weapon that had ended so many lives, simply fell from her back. It hit the ground with a soft sound and lay still. For the first time in 3,000 years, Thyra was not a weapon. She was just a person. Elena watched this transformation with wonder. Thyra looked smaller without her armor, more vulnerable, but also more real, more human. The crying stopped, but the wonder in Thyra's eyes continued. She looked around at the construction site with completely new vision. She saw the playing children, the growing gardens, the cooperation between species. She looked at Elena. "It's over," Thyra whispered. "It's over," Elena confirmed. Thyra stood there in the afternoon sunlight, free for the first time in millennia. Her long black hair moved in the breeze. Her simple clothes were clean and comfortable. She held the memory bloom the child had given her. Elena looked at this woman who had sacrificed everything for the galaxy's safety, who had carried impossible burdens with grace, who had fought alone for longer than human civilization had existed, and Elena saw something others had missed. Something beyond the warrior, beyond the duty, beyond the legend, you know, Elena said gently, watching Thyra in the golden light of the alien sunset, surrounded by the beauty they had built together. "You're lovely." The word hung in the air like music. Lovely, not fearsome, not terrible, not mighty lovely. Thyra stared at Elena in complete shock. In 3,000 years, no one had ever used that word to describe her. She was a weapon, a force of nature, a necessary evil. But lovely. Thyra's last sword, which she had kept as a backup, fell from her hand without her even realizing it. It landed in the grass next to the memory bloom and lay forgotten. For the first time since the curse began, someone saw Thyra as beautiful. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of a new kind of ship. It wasn't built for war. It was built for peace. The vessel carried diplomats, teachers, artists, and healers to worlds that needed hope instead of conquest. Through the large windows, Elena could see their current destination. The planet Zarian had been torn apart by civil war for 50 years. 2 species shared the world but could not share peace. The Galactic Confederation had asked Elena and her team to help. "Status report," Elena said to her crew. "Both sides have agreed to meet with us," reported Lieutenant Chen, who had transferred to Elena's new command. "But they're suspicious. They think this is some kind of trick." Elena nodded. She understood their suspicion. For too long, the galaxy had solved problems with force. The idea of solving them with understanding was still new. "Where's Thyra?" Elena asked. "In the garden room teaching the children," Chen answered. Elena smiled. 6 months ago, Thyra had been the galaxy's most feared warrior. Now she spent her days working with young people from different species, helping them understand each other. Elena walked through the ship's corridors toward the garden room. Along the way, she passed crew members from 12 different species. They all wore blue uniforms instead of military colors. Blue for peace, blue for hope, blue for the deep space between stars where infinite possibilities waited. The garden room was filled with plants from dozens of worlds. In the center, Thyra sat with a group of children and teenagers. She was reading them a story from an ancient book. Elena paused in the doorway to listen. And so the princess realized that her sword was not her strength. Thyra read in her deep, gentle voice. Her strength came from her willingness to understand others, even her enemies. A young human boy raised his hand. "But what if the enemies won't listen? What if they just want to fight?" Thyra closed the book and looked at the boy with those ancient, wise eyes. "Then you show them something they've never seen before. You show them that there's another way to be strong." Elena stepped into the room. "How are today's lessons going?" The children turned to greet Elena with excited voices. They loved story time with Thyra, but they also enjoyed Elena's visits. "Thyra was telling us about the old wars," said a Cathari cub, "before people learned to talk instead of fight." "The old wars taught us important lessons," Elena said, sitting down with the group. "They showed us that fighting only creates more problems." Thyra nodded. "But they also showed us how strong people can be when they work together for something good." A teenage Andromedan raised her crystal hand. Is it true that you used to be a warrior, Thyra? Thyra was quiet for a moment. She still carried the memories of 3,000 years of battle, but she had learned to use those memories as teaching tools instead of burdens. Yes, Thyra said honestly. For a very long time I thought fighting was the only way to protect people. But Elena taught me something important. What? The children asked together. Thyra looked at Elena with a smile. She taught me that the strongest thing you can do is choose not to fight even when you could win. Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. In 6 months, she had watched Thyra transform from a weapon into a teacher, from a destroyer into a builder, from someone who carried death into someone who carried hope. Commander. Chen's voice came through Elena's communicator. We're approaching Xerion. Both sides are sending representatives to meet us. Elena stood up. Children, it's time for your next lesson. Thyra and I have work to do. As the children filed out, chattering about the stories they had heard, Elena and Thyra made their way to the ship's meeting room. Through the windows, they could see Xerion growing larger. The planet looked scarred from decades of war. Are you nervous? Elena asked. Thyra shook her head. No, for the first time in my life I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. Which is? Help people find peace. Show them that enemies can become friends. Use my experience with war to teach the value of peace. Elena smiled. You've become quite the philosopher. I had a good teacher, Thyra said, looking at Elena with affection. The meeting room filled with diplomats and crew members. On the main screen they could see 2 groups of ships approaching from different directions. The Xerion natives were tall, thin people with orange skin. The Xerion colonists were shorter, broader people with blue-gray skin. They had shared the planet for 300 years but had been fighting for 50. Incoming transmission from both fleets. Chen reported. Put them both on screen, Elena ordered. 2 figures appeared on the display. The native representative was a tall woman with fierce golden eyes. The colonist representative was a stocky man with silver hair and suspicious expression. I am Commander Elena Vasquez, Elena began. This is my partner Thyra. We're here to help you find peace. The native woman spoke first. I am War Leader Kessa. We agreed to this meeting, but we don't understand what you want from us. The colonist man nodded. I am Defense Chief Gron. Our peoples have tried to make peace before. It never works. Elena looked at Thyra, who stepped forward. 50 years ago, I would have solved your problem by conquering both of your peoples, Thyra said calmly. I would have imposed peace through fear and force. Both representatives looked shocked. They recognized Thyra's name from the old stories. But I learned something important, Thyra continued. Peace that comes from force doesn't last. Real peace only comes when people choose it together. War Leader Kessa leaned forward. How do we choose peace when they have taken our sacred lands? Defense Chief Gron's face grew angry. How do we choose peace when they attack our settlements? Elena stepped beside Thyra. By remembering that you're both people. By remembering that your children deserve better than war. Easy words, Gron said. But words don't solve old hatred. Thyra nodded. You're right. Words alone aren't enough. That's why we're going to show you something different. Elena activated a new display. It showed images from the planet they had just left. Catharian humans working together. Andromemons and Belphinoids sharing meals. Children from different species playing together. This is what's possible, Elena said. This is what peace looks like when people choose to build instead of destroy. For the next hour, Elena and Thyra shared stories of worlds where enemies had become allies. They showed examples of cooperation replacing conflict. They offered practical solutions for shared resources and territory, but most importantly, they listened. They heard the real fears behind the anger. They understood the hurt that lay beneath the hatred. Your children will inherit this conflict, Thyra said finally, unless you choose to give them something better. War Leader Kessa looked tired. How do we trust people who have hurt us? The same way I learned to trust Elena, Thyra answered. One small step at a time. One choice at a time. One moment of hope at a time. Elena watched both representatives carefully. She could see them thinking, considering possibilities they had never imagined. We're not asking you to forget the past, Elena said. We're asking you to choose the future. Defense Chief Gron was quiet for a long moment. Then what would you need from us? 3 things, Elena replied. First, a ceasefire while we work out details. Second, Representatives from both sides willing to talk honestly. Third, the courage to try something new. Elena looked around the meeting room at her diverse crew, humans and aliens working together, former enemies now friends, a ship full of people dedicated to building peace instead of waging war. 6 months ago, Thyra was the galaxy's most feared warrior, Elena said. Today she reads stories to children and teaches them about cooperation. People can change. Civilizations can change. Everything can change if we choose to make it happen. Elena looked directly at both representatives. The question is, what do you choose? War Leader Kessa and Defense Chief Gran looked at each other across the transmission link. 50 years of war lay between them, but they also saw something new. They saw possibility. We choose to try, Kessa said quietly. We choose to hope, Gran added. Elena smiled. Another world would have a chance at peace. Another group of children would grow up without war. Later that evening, Elena and Thyra stood together on the observation deck, watching Xerion's sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. The planet looked beautiful from space. Soon, Elena hoped it would be beautiful on the surface, too. Do you ever miss it? Elena asked. The fighting? The certainty of battle? Thyra considered the question seriously. I miss the simplicity sometimes. When you're a warrior, every problem has a clear solution. Fight, win, move on. And now? Now every problem requires thought, patience, understanding. It's harder work than fighting. But it's better work. Elena nodded. You know what I realized today? What? Elena turned to face Thyra completely. When I first called you lovely, I meant it as a compliment to your appearance. But I was wrong about what made you lovely. Thyra raised an eyebrow. Oh? Elena smiled. What makes you lovely isn't how you look. It's who you've chosen to become. It's the way you read stories to children. It's how you listen to people's fears and help them find hope. It's your willingness to use 3,000 years of painful experience to help others avoid the same pain. Thyra was quiet for a moment, then smiled. You know what makes you lovely, Elena? What? You saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You looked at a weapon and saw a person.